Perfect. So do you guys see my presentation there?
Yep, that looks good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yes, thank you for joining this event. And I'd like to first thank, I guess, Peter and Janet also for letting me come here and speak today about business risk management and the suite of programs. So like Peter said, hopefully you'll be able to get from this session a general knowledge about the information, and hopefully we'll be able to extend that going forward. So today I just want to talk about kind of the overview of business risk management and provide a high-level overview of specifically AgriInvest and AgriStability on how to enroll, some of the forms, the basic design and calculation of the program, and where to get additional information. So what does business risk management mean to you? It kind of means different for everybody. So the definition of business risk management refers to the process of identifying, assessing, and prioritizing risks that could impact a business's ability to achieve its goals. It involves implementing strategies and controls to minimize or mitigate the potential negative effects of those risks. So in agriculture and food businesses, business risk management is especially important as it helps kind of protect against uncertainties like market fluctuations, weather events we've seen the last number of years, diseases, equipment failures, or even policy changes. So I think we've seen over the years and understand, especially this year has been hard with the crop loss and the price that blueberry producers are getting. So effective business risk management includes the following steps. So you have to kind of identify some of those risks, assess the probability of them happening, and then put risk mitigation tools in place to help you with those. And also have a monitoring and kind of review process throughout your business to just make sure that you're always looking at what's new and coming and making sure that you have the proper tools to manage that risk. So what I'm going to go over to do today with the business risk management programs is one of those tools to kind of help you with that risk mitigation piece that is a part of that process. So there are 4 main BRN programs available to agriculture businesses nationally. So participation in these programs, it is voluntary, and it typically includes a producer contribution component. So BRN programs, they're cost shared, 60% federal and 40% provincial. AgriInvest and AgriStability, they're administered through AAFC out of Winnipeg. And AgriInsurance is locally administered through the Nova Scotia Crop and Livestock Commission. So these programs are designed to work together, but they're not mandatory to apply to all of them. So it's really good to kind of understand what those tools are and how they can help you in your business. Another thing too, I wanted to mention, I know with interest rates kind of on the rise, I know they're going down and hopefully going to get down again this coming month. But a lot of people have kind of looked at advanced payment program as a way to kind of help with that interest cost or expense on their operation. So I just like to highlight that a producer that is looking at advanced payment program, you have to be enrolled in either AgriStability or that production insurance through the Nova Scotia Crop and Livestock Insurance. So I'm just going to jump in to AgriInvest. So AgriInvest is a self-managed producer government savings account, and it's designed to help you manage small income declines and make investments to manage risk. So producers can make an annual deposit into their AgriInvest account and receive matching government contributions. So in this scenario, you really have a lot of control because funds are held in an account at your institution that you choose, and you have access to those funds as you need them. So how does it work? You can do yearly contributions, and they're based on your allowable net sales. So the definition of allowable net sales is a commodity sales minus commodity purchases. There is a minimum deposit of $250, and there is a maximum government contribution of $10,000 annually. So I tried to run a report. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it for 2023, but for 2022, there was 90 Nova Scotia producers, blueberry producers that had an AgriInvest account and that they did a deposit. So when you think about, I think Peter in previous conversations said it was around 600 blueberry producers. So that number is quite low. So I just want to really emphasize this program for people who aren't enrolled. There is no annual fee, and it's kind of easy government money. So I'm just going to bring up an example here. So I know some of you producers run a mixed operation. So I came up with an example for that. So let's say you have 150,000 in cattle sales and you have $100,000 in blueberry sales. So that would leave you a total of 250,000 for your allowable eligible commodities. And then you have to subtract any eligible commodities. So let's say you bought feeders, those would have to be subtracted. So that would leave you an allowable net sales of 220,000. So when you look at 1% of that, you'd be able to get $2,200 from the government for matching contributions into that account. I just also wanted to note, you can put 100% of the allowable net sales into the account, but it's only the 1% that is going to be matched. So many producers in Nova Scotia, that's how they use it. They would do that 1% or close to that 1% to get that matching one. So for AgriInvest, here's just kind of like a quick snippet on the steps on how to enroll for producers that are online that haven't enrolled yet. So you need to complete your AgriInvest forms. Most do this through CRA. But before you do that, you have to get a participation identification number or a PIN number. So again, I can help you with those forms to start the process. So the second step is to file those forms on time. Once you file them, like I said, most go through CRA. CRA gives that information to AAFC so they can create a deposit notice for you. So once you get that deposit notice in the mail, you can bring that to a financial institution of your choice. You open up your AgriInvest account and you make that deposit. Once you make it, it's the financial institution that communicates back to AAFC and it lets them know that that money is there, and then they will do that matching contribution. And then once they do that matching contribution, you can take the funds out whenever you need them. The intent of the program is that you kind of build up that savings. So on one of those bad years when you need extra cash flow, the money is there. But some producers do kind of take it out annually and then reinvest into their farm. So one important note to note here is that when you do withdraw the money, the government portion is taxable at that time, and it's the government portion that comes out first. So once, for any producers, once you are already set up, it's just a simplified process after that. And basically each year you just submit your tax forms through CRA, you get a deposit notice, you bring that to the financial institution and do the deposit. So it's a very simple process to go through. And the calculation is very easy to do yourself as well to figure out if this program would benefit you. So AgriInvest, how to use it. So just some helpful hints. So deposits need to be made by the deadline or the deposit notice. And usually when the deposit notice gets sent out, you have 90 days to make that deposit. Only one deposit per deposit notice is allowed. So I just like to highlight this to producers because some producers think it's kind of like a savings where you can keep on adding in a certain amount each pay until you get to that max, but it's kind of a one-shot deal. The interest rate paid by the financial institution on funds is determined by the institution. So I definitely recommend for you to kind of shop around, make sure that you're at a financial institution that gives you a good interest rate. And in February, AAFC will send you an annual statement of account, and it shows you an account transaction history for the year, and it also includes any taxable withdrawals that you made. So there are some changes for AgriInvest that I just also wanted to highlight. They're in the coming year, and I don't think it would impact a lot of producers here, but I just want to quickly go over them. So the deadline for AgriInvest programs, it will be changing. So starting with the 2025 program year, the deadline to file your AgriInvest program form will be June 30th, 2026. And it used to be September the 30th. And then after that, the final deadline is September 30th, and it used to be December. So it is kind of sped up a little bit. So just kind of highlight that. Oh, sorry. And there's also going to be new requirements coming out. So anybody who has an allowable net sales over that $1 million for the previous 3 years of a program, they're going to require you to have an agri-environmental risk assessment to be done to get that matching contributions. So again, this is an important piece. If you do fit within that, the Federation of Agriculture does those environmental firm plans. And that would be something that you could get in order to check this box. So if you don't have an up-to-date environmental firm plan, then it's something that you should kind of put on your list of things to do. So here I just wanted to highlight some of the tools in the website. So if you go to the website, there are specific handbooks, all the forms, and there's also information sheets for specific questions that you might have. Like I said, it's a pretty simple calculation, but there is an AgriInvest estimate calculator that you can play around with just to see what those numbers look like for your firm. And AgriInvest portal, also known as AAFC portal. A lot of Nova Scotia producers are not using this portal. So I just wanted to, again, let them know that it is available. A lot of people are going online for technology with different forms and stuff. So you can track the status of your application there. You can view your current and prior year statements, review all the correspondence through AAFC, and you can also communicate with them as well. So again, these are just for your information. Any producers who I have on here right now that have questions and want to enroll, I will be at the very end of my presentation. I have my contact details. Please reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. I can help you go through the processes of applying. So before I go to kind of talk about AgriStability, another program, I'd just like to open it up if there's any questions regarding the AgriInvest information.
So anybody have any questions?
Okay, perfect. So AgriStability, it's a little bit more of a complicated program and might be something that you have to kind of put a little bit more work in to see if it's works for your operation. With AgriInvest, it's a no-brainer. If you can meet that minimum $2,500 or $250 deposit, I think you should be signing up and encouraging other producers also to sign up. So with AgriStability, AgriStability provides support for large and short-term declines in the firm and income. So the benefits are based on the decline in the firm's current year margin compared to their average historical margin. So one good thing about this program is the losses can be triggered for a multiple of reasons. So it's not as specific to apparel like we know with a lot of insurances. So it could be price declines, there could be production problems, disease or pest. It also can include storage losses or rise in expenses. So for AgriStability, producers absorb normal losses and receive support for losses greater than that 30% of their historical performance. So losses are compensated at a rate of 80 cents per dollar lost after it is triggered. So here on the right-hand side, let's just go over an example of your reference margin is $100,000. So you have to kind of support you have to find out how to support the 30% yourself. And then anything after that 70%. So you'd have to have a $30,000 loss that you'd have to figure out how to manage that through cash flow. And then you could look at triggering the payment. So with here, let's say you had a scenario where your operation had a 75% decrease in your decline in your margin. So that would be a $75,000 loss. So you can see here that first 30,000, again, there's no program support for that. That's something that you have to manage within your own operation. But this 80% or this portion here, which so this the decline beyond that 30%. So that would be 80% of the 45,000. So it would be about the 36,000. So as you can see, the farm does have to absorb a significant loss in order to trigger that payment. And I'm going to go over some of those calculations too. And you're going to see it's a little bit of a harder program to understand when it comes to those margins. But like Peter said, I just want to do a high level overview. And then hopefully we'll be able to continue another one and kind of go a little bit more detail on some of those calculations. So for eligibility, to be eligible for this program, you need to have 6 consecutive months of farming activity in the program. And you have to have completed or attempted to complete a production cycle during that program year. You also need to be carrying on the business of farming in Canada and report in farming income or losses for income tax purposes. So for cost, it is a relatively lower cost for the program. So fees for ongoing participation, they're based on your contribution reference margin, which is your reference margin from the previous program year. The fee to protect your farm is equal to 0.45% of your contribution reference margin, and it's multiplied by the 70% support. So that means you pay $3.15 for every 1,000 of protected reference margin. So you can sit down and kind of look at what that reference margin would be for your operation, and then times it by that $3.15. So there is a minimum fee of $45, and there's also an annual administration fee of $55. So there are a couple of important definitions to kind of help understand the program. So program margin, that's your allowable income minus your allowable expenses in a given year, with adjustments for changes in receivables, payables, and inventory. Your Olympic average, so an average for 3 out of the 5 years where the highest and lowest are excluded. And I'm going to go over an example, so you're going to see some of these definitions put to use. And reference margin, the program margin, Olympic average, or the previous 3 years if you're a new farmer. So here is just an example. It's not specific to blueberries. I found it off on the AAF site. But so let's say here that you have been farming for 5 years. And here is your program margins for those 5 years. So how the program is structured is it looks at your Olympic average, which is this next line here. So you can see here that the Olympic average, they take the high, they take the low off, and they look at that average of those 3 years to get that reference margin calculation for your operation. So that's how they kind of do that historical review. And then let's look at this current year. So let's say this year you have allowable income of 480,000 and you have allowable expenses of 800,000. You have to factor in these accrual adjustments. So many producers here in Nova Scotia file their taxes cash accounted rather than accrual accounting. And this program is designed with accrual. So they have to look at some of those adjustments that cash accounting doesn't really factor in, which would include kind of that inventory. So any commodity that you have on hand. My understanding is most producers wouldn't have inventory unless you're doing value add or direct to market. Accounts receivable, so that would be anything that's owed to the producer. Account payable, so that would be anything that the producers owe out. Or purchases or inputs, so anything that's prepaid. I know sometimes on good years, you guys look at kind of prepaying some of those chemicals if you can get a good price. So that those would be some of the things that they would consider when they do that accrual adjustment. So in this situation, it's showing that your program year margin is negative 120,000. So when you work this scenario through, if your reference margin, so again, this is your 5-year margin, like 5-year margin, they look at the Olympic average to get this, to get your reference margin, then they look at that trigger point. So again, that's 70% of your reference margin. So when they look at your program year margin of negative 120, your eligible support would be around 298,000. And again, they look at 80% of that. So in this scenario, you could be looking at a payment of 289,173. So again, this is a very basic example, and it's like very extreme too, just to kind of show you the ins and outs of how some of that calculation is done. So I also wanted to talk to you guys about structural change. So structural change is factored into the way that they do their calculations. Again, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to leave it very high level, but I can get into the weeds in the next one. So the structural change is the comparison between the current program year and the historical reference years. It may not be relevant if a farm has been increasing or decreasing in size or changing commodities. So it's really looking at trying to compare apples to apples, where you're looking at the same size operation year over year, and they're taking kind of that up and down out of it. So some examples of when structural changes come into play is it could include when you're expanding acres, reducing acres, producing a new commodity. In blueberries, we see it a lot when you guys have those biannual crops and you might not have that 50-50 crop rotation. So it's not the same year over year, or it could be change in ownership. So AgriStability adjusts that reference margin up or down to reflect those changes. So steps to participate in AgriStability. So the first step is application. Again, you need to have a PIN to start the process. Once you fill out the application, you would get an enrollment notice from AAFC. Once you get that notice, you have to pay your fees. So in order to enroll in the program, you have to apply by April the 30th. And the payment is also due by April 30th, unless there's a different date on that enrollment notice. So again, they usually give you that 90-day window if you from when you apply. Submission of your participation report form. So in the following year, once you're enrolled in the program and paid your fees, the step 3 is when you do your taxes again. So you're submitting your reports, either if you're individual or through a corporation, and that has to be done by June 30th of the following year. So again, I just like to note that date has changed. Historically, it's been September 30th. But it has changed to June 30th. Once AAFC gets that information from CRA, you would receive your calculation of benefit. And this is a form that has the ins and outs of how your calculation was done. It will also let you know if you receive a payment or not. So for producers that are in this program that are online today, when you get your calculation of benefit, I am more than happy to kind of schedule an appointment with you and go over that information and go over kind of what it means when I'm looking at that data and see if it's really aligning up with what's going on in the farm. I have been doing that with some producers that have been reaching out. Some are saying, yeah, this makes sense. Other people are saying, nope, that number doesn't make sense. And then we dive into it and we can work with AAFC to make those changes to make sure that the information that you're submitting really is what's happening on the farm. So for AgriStability, there are some important changes coming as well. So the final deadline to submit your AgriStability program forms will change. I've already noted that in that last slide. So it's going to be changing from June 30th, or changing to June 30th from September 30th. And then the final deadline used to be December 31st, and now it's going to be September 30th. So if you want to look at doing everything without penalties, it has to be before that June 30th. There's also some new optional program features that's been made available to participants. So AAFC has been talking to producers and talking to provinces and trying to figure out how to make these programs more user-friendly, and they are listening to the producers. So two things that they have brought forward is the tax-aligned reference margin. So you can now choose to have your reference margin calculated based on the same method of accounting you file your taxes. So for cash filers, this means you'll no longer need to submit those 5 years of historical accrual information when you're applying for the program, which will significantly reduce that paperwork that you need to submit. Again, that is something that you have to apply for. It's not assumed that you want to do that. So there is paperwork that you have to fill out to let them know. There is also a coverage notice. So to increase the predictability of the program, you can receive a coverage notice that provides an estimate of your reference margin and coverage level for the current program year. So again, I think it's a great tool in addition to the program, but just remember that if you do go for that coverage notice, this is based on the information you're given and based on kind of those estimates. So if something does change on your farm or that program year, it might not line up totally, but again, it's a tool to kind of help you take some of that guesswork out of it. So if there are producers that are on this call that are interested in either of those options, please reach out and I can get that paperwork to you and get it sent off to AAFC so you can participate in those features. So again, I just wanted to provide the information, the link for the website. It's very similar to AgriInvest, where you have the handbooks and forms, information sheets. It also has the AgriStability benefit estimator there too. Again, the estimator doesn't go into too much detail, but it does, if you have an idea of what those your program year margins and stuff are, you can put them in and it gives you an idea. Again, I know I feel like I'm a broken record, but if there's any questions that you have around AgriStability, these tools are available online, but I'm also available if you want to give me a call and I can kind of do the digging and get that information back to you. So before I kind of move on, was there questions around AgriStability?
I'm sure someone must have a question around AgriStability.
So waiting until we get into the weeds, they don't want to scare me off yet.
Yeah. Okay, so just to remind everybody, I am recording this, so we are going to post this on our YouTube channel for you to look at it again, but also, yeah, Erin's contact number at the end will be available, so to call her directly. But
Perfect. Okay. So AgriInsurance, it's a part of the business risk management suite. I'm not going to go into detail today on these programs. It is administered provincially with the Nova Scotia Crop and Livestock Commission. So if you have any questions around production insurance, just give them a call and they can go explain to you the ins and outs and go over that information with your firm. Again, Agri-Recovery, I just wanted to highlight it because it is a part of the business risk management suite. So it is a federal provincial framework that is developed for disaster relief to help agriculture businesses with recovering from a natural disaster. So in this framework, the province advocates for the program, not the producer, where the other AgriInvest and AgriStability are producer-led. And it aids with extraordinary costs beyond what is available by other programming. And it's a federal government will work with the provincial government, and then we would put a targeted program out. So I know that there was a Maple initiative with Fiona, and we were able to have a specific provincial program for that. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of high level overview, and I hope some of you have a better understanding on what these programs are and how they can be useful on risk management with your operation. As promised, here is my contact details. So again, I know I've said it, but I just want to highlight that AgriStability and AgriInvest, it is administered out of Winnipeg, but I can be your local contact if you have any questions. Sometimes I don't have all the answers, but I can work with AAFC to get those to you. So if you haven't started the process and you're looking at applying, please reach out to me. I can walk you through those steps and get you the proper paperwork. And if you are a producer that are already in these programs that want to better understand that calculation of benefit or have questions specific with your firm, again, please reach out to me and I can help you. And I'm just going to mention, like, I know I was talking to a producer and he's like, I don't want to bother you. And I called the call center, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be your local contact. And I can help advocate if you're waiting on a payment. I can work with AAFC to try to speed it up or find out what the holdup is and help as much as I can on that process. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. And I think we're going to be working towards, we'll see how it develops, but some sort of a fact sheet at some point in the future that might be specific to wild blueberries around AgriStability. Is that something we're going to be trying to do? Working with
Yes.
Ag Canada, obviously, and yeah.
Yeah, so in some of those tools that are on their website, they do have like a guide for different commodities. So I'm hoping that we can work together to kind of help to put it like a kind of like a fact sheet or a guide that would be for specific for wild blueberries and could be housed on your guys' site. Also too, I just wanted to highlight, this is hopefully one of many. So any feedback that you can provide to me on what's useful information, what's not useful information, or what direction would be beneficial for you to go in, so I can really make sure that I'm aiming these and making these presentations better for you guys and something that's going to be really useful. So please reach out to me with any of that feedback, would be very helpful too.
Excellent. So I know there's a couple of comments here that are thankful for you offering your services to talk to the individuals specifically. Is there any last questions for the day? We didn't want to have this too long, but we have some time if somebody has a specific question they want to ask about any of these programs.
It might be because you're recording. I was gonna say,
Yeah, it might
because
be.
all the information is done. If you wanted to stop recording, if people had specific questions that
Sure.
they didn't want to record.